I'm Sydney, and I am a servant of the Almighty God. I am also the founder of SOTAG, SOTAG, which stands for Servants of the Almighty God, SOTAG.org. We believe in truth, love, and the brotherhood of mankind. Today I want to spend a little time talking about how one word has influenced the course of human history. But before that, let me do my little plug for the book that was inspired, that got me on kind of fulfilling this journey. I've been on this journey for like almost all my life. But so my latest book is Humanity's Inflection Point. And it basically is about how, religion is taking us down here, dividing us, the cause for wars and all of that stuff. But knowledge, which are revelations from our Creator, is leading the way in which, and demonstrating what religions should have been. If we had simply followed the commandments and placed less priority on the stories associated, if we had just focused on the commandments, and the world would be much different. But it's not too late. We can always do that. And this is where my inspirations, I hope, will touch people, and we'll get there. Maybe long after I'm gone, but I would have done my work for the most important. So the one word, I have to go back to this, right? 1859, Charles Darwin, discovering the processes of evolution. And I know, again, if you look at just the commandments, we be good, but it's the stories. And you hear about inerrancy and all of these things now that, it has to be the literal, although we know it's been edited many times, right? But science, there's a hypocrisy there, right? Because the people who say, no, I'm about exactly things as they are written, I'm like, but you go to the doctor, you accept science because we know, right? You have a scientific hypothesis and it gets proven and it becomes a theory and everybody accepts it because it is proven, not by one, but again and again. But that same science, which has been advancing at this rapid pace, like I've done in other things, is that they are journeys of discovery. And one of the things that we never went back to address is the one word that got associated with the scientific fact of evolution. We never readdressed that word of random next to it. Because in the last 160 plus, let's say the last 200 years, we must recognize that nowhere in our life sciences, which is everything that's associated with life, whether it's in fauna, flora, terrestrial or aquatic, there is nowhere where we can say this is proof of random. And random, it's very simple. Something that is not repeatable and not predictable. Oftentimes we cannot accurately predict until we observe something. We may not know the governing principles that direct this action or these series of events. But if we observe it, be like, oh, if we do this and this is what happens. That becomes predictable, even though we don't understand the governing principles. Or we observe that this is repeatable. We may not even understand it, but it happens. It's kind of like we observing how terrestrial bodies, the moon, influences life here on Earth. We may not understand how and why, but we are able to observe that it becomes repeatable and predictable. So it's not random. And so random has to be unrepeatable, unpredictable. There is nothing in our life sciences or physical sciences or our earth sciences, even earthquakes, right? We can't predict them accurately, but we understand they are faults and you have these tectonic plates. And so everything that science is revealing to us shows patterns, and we understand that there are governing principles behind that. So that one word that was associated, and I often say it's like that one word, whomever associated random with evolution, it's like that came from the depths of hell itself. Because the outshoot of that is that now in many of our institutes of higher learning adopt that, and it's almost like an excuse. When things are random, there should be no accountability. All of our actions are the result of these random neural reactions. Neurons fire and we do things, and so it takes out that accountability that our Creator required of us. Well, not required, but basically gave us in the commandments. It says, I gave you free will, but I also gave you some principles that you should follow. The original rule of law, that no one is above and applies to everyone. But that one word, associating random for the last 160 something years, based on today's, this year, it's that one word seems to absolve many of our leaders, and it has unleashed the greed and the hate and all of the deception, and even, and unfortunately, religions, which I would love to have some impact, for them to realize that science is a manifestation of God's omnipotence. Once we recognize that, that's where, again, humanity's inflection point comes in, because we realize that, yes, we are part of the design of the Almighty. And so there is not this gap, this gap that we seem to have, this gulch that seemed to have been created, between 1859 and now. It's no. We can recognize that our science, which is a few hundred years old, right? We are already doing artificial intelligence. And again, the last 4 decades or so, I've been doing software engineering at every level. So I totally get this. You store information, and then you put it such advanced logic that it can actually add to itself, independent of the people who. And that's what evolution looks like. You build something, and you give it so much intelligence. And we see it. The intelligence has to occur down at the genetic level, where based on external things, it's too warm, it's too cold, there's no food, there is water, whatever the condition is out there. Then the genes, you have these whatever chemical reactions or whatever happens that changes, and it results in mutations. And by having that at that level, so that when the change happens, it results in these mutations that propagate down the generations. And so we have this progressive thing. So it may be very true that, our life forms from Neanderthals and all the different forms that we took, and starting in Africa or wherever and migrating, but that shows the level of intelligence like we would send to them to Mars or one of the outer planets, right? If we were dealing with living cells rather than organic matter. We're dealing with metals, right? We're dealing with metals and circuit boards, and we have silicon where we store the logic and the databases that the logic will interrogate and that sort of thing. So we're not dealing with live things, but we are starting to do that with plants, right? We're taking genes and we transplanting them, but the scientists who are doing that should be able to recognize that there is nothing random about this. These are gorgeous, these are incredibly well-designed systems, and yet random still exists. And if you think about the separate path that we would be on if we just eliminate that random next to evolution, because what that does is it leaves a huge gap. A gap that says there is intelligent design. There is intelligent design. And as we move forward, we recognize it in the plants, the animals, in our life sciences, our physical sciences, our earth sciences. We recognize there is intelligent design. Which takes us back to the commandments. I give you this autonomy. You go out there, you have the choice, but you do not, because that one word random enables the rejection of the Creator, rejection of His principles. And it's amazing that all our religious leaders are totally blind, and they will not. And again, I guess that's part of the process. And I am proud. This is my job. I was granted that job to inform. It's not for me. It's for all of us to inform that, yes, recognize our science, which demonstrates again and again there is no random, is a manifestation of the omnipotence, the incredible capabilities and intelligence of our Creator. And as we improve, we need to recognize that, discard the concept of random, which forces us to basically become godless and ignore His governing principles, the rule of law by which we should all exist. Some of it is enshrined in the American Constitution. All men are created equal. And so it's kind of like this little thing back here that says, which I got way back in around 2008, our science reveals God's methods. Now, this is 2023, where the rest of it came to me and it kind of filled in this. And the key to meeting God's expectation of us is self-control. These things came to me again, almost 15, almost 20 years ago. And diversity is His. As servants, we must honor His diversity. Again, none of it conflicts with the commandments. None of it. It enhances. And I see the same thing in many ways. That refresher. And when it resonates in you, it makes sense. Again, like I said, all the scientists, they may be so obsessed with, the fame, and which lasts for a very short time, the fame, and they get some financial rewards and all this stuff, and they go along with the random stuff. But we need to address that one word, which can tear us apart, that enables, because really, with the rule of law, autocracies, when you have these cults and those who claim to be but do not obey the commandments, it invalidates them. And once we reject that random and we recognize His intelligence, we will begin to unite as people all over the world, recognizing His diversity and honoring His diversity. So really, it's not about black and white and Asian, and no, those are just His diversity. Just like He created different birds and different different animals. Because now globalization is showing us that we need to get away from the random, recognize and go back to his basic principles that are, of course, in the Torah, the Quran, the Bible, the basic rule of law that is given to us to govern all of us. So regardless of which religion you follow, they are governing principles. And when we get away from this concept of random, we can begin to move forward respecting our differences of cultures, of locations, of all of these things, but recognize we have an individual creator, right? That intelligence, that design, one system that works for all of us, the same gravity, the same sun, all of these rules that govern plants and animals, the laws of nature, more aptly named the rules of creation that all our sciences are after and are proving that there is no random. We need in time, and it brings all of us together. It brings our science, it brings our religion, it brings all of us back together and invalidates, so in time we can reject that which is against God. He gave us all free will. Everything in creation desires free will and freedom. And so those who would restrict and curtail, they are, as I've written in my book, they're demonic, because they don't believe that we are deserving of it, as some demons will. They do not believe that we are deserving of having the free will and that we can find our way with the guidance, because the guidance is available to all of us. So I want us to think about how that one word, and we must unite both science and religion and recognize that word has to go, which leaves a beautiful void of record that can be filled simply by recognizing. So that void it's artificial in our minds. It points to a fulfilling divine intelligence, an intelligent design, as is manifest in everything we observe. It's just that for some reason we are not accepting of it. So we need to get past the random and get back to that intelligent design that gave us the commandments, and now it's given us this uniting science that unites all of us regardless of where we are on the planet. And when you think of this, and remember, this is no coincidence. You didn't run into this by accident. I want you to thank you again for taking the time, and until, may God bless.